Welcome back to The Explainer. Today, we're throwing out the old rulebook on wealth. If you've ever thought that financial success is all about having a genius-level IQ, perfectly timing the market, or building the world's most insanely complex spreadsheet, well, you can just toss that idea right out the window. The actual truth about building wealth is way more fascinating. It relies heavily on the sheer power of time, compounding, and prioritizing basic survival over sheer brilliance. Let's get into it. So think about this. Why doesn't being an absolute financial genius actually guarantee that you'll get rich? We've all seen it, right? Super smart, highly educated people just totally blowing it with their portfolios. The trap we constantly fall into is thinking that money is purely a logical math problem. But in reality, as our source material reveals, money is deeply and uncontrollably psychological. Your intelligence doesn't protect you from emotional bias. Actually, it kind of just hides it. And there's this great quote from author Morgan Housel that hits the nail on the head here. He says, "People do crazy things with money, but no one is really crazy." It kind of validates our own past choices, doesn't it? Every single one of us lives in our own unique financial bubble, completely shaped by what we've lived through. A person who graduated right into the 2008 financial crash is going to view the stock market completely differently than a tech worker who got rich during the 90s boom. They're looking at the exact same market, making total opposite decisions. And yet, through their own generational lenses, their choices seem perfectly rational to them. These hidden psychological factors build into the invisible forces that really dictate our outcomes. We love to praise hard work, but unseen forces like luck and risk, they play massive roles. Take Bill Gates, unquestionably brilliant, insanely hardworking, but he also had a 1 in a million stroke of luck. He attended one of the only high schools in America in the 1970s that actually had a computer. That gave him a monumental head start. On the flip side, look at his high school friend, Ken Evans, equally brilliant, equally obsessed with computers. But Kent tragically passed away in a mountaineering accident before even finishing high school. That's a 1 in a million brush with extreme risk. The scary reality is you can do absolutely everything right and still lose. Section 1. Survival over brilliance. Why staying rich is actually harder than getting rich. So accumulating wealth requires a completely different mindset from keeping it. Getting rich, that's all offense. It requires boldness, taking huge leaps, extreme optimism. But staying rich is entirely defense. Defense is about caution, humility, resilience, and building a margin of safety. If you take away just one thing from this explainer today, make it this. Good investing isn't about brilliance. It's simply about survival. If you can just avoid catastrophe, you stay in the game long enough for your wealth to actually compound. You know, there's a saying I absolutely love. The most important part of every plan is planning on your plan not going according to plan. Why does this matter so much? Because your flawlessly optimized, mathematically perfect spreadsheet looks amazing on a screen. But guess what? A spreadsheet doesn't feel panic during a market crash. It doesn't get laid off. You, as a human being, definitely do. You have to build in a margin of safety because your plan doesn't fail when the math is wrong. It fails when your nerves give out and you just can't handle the stress anymore. And speaking of nerves, let's talk about Netflix for a second. From 2002 to 2018, it saw an astronomical 35,000% gain. I mean, that is the ultimate dream, right? But here's the crucial catch. It spent 94% of that time trading below its previous all-time high. The agony of those constant drops and that volatility, that's what we call the emotional fee of investing. You have to view market volatility not as a fine or a punishment for doing something wrong, but as a mandatory fee you just have to pay to get those long-term gains. You've got to accept the discomfort because there really is no free lunch in investing. Section 2, the hidden power of time, compounding, and tail events. Okay, we're getting to the climax of this whole concept. Because if a defensive survival strategy keeps you in the game, time is what actually wins it for you. Check out this jaw-dropping number, $156 billion. Warren Buffett's net worth is roughly $160 billion. But here is the wild part. Over $156 billion of that was accumulated after his 65th birthday. Let that sink in for a second. His secret wasn't necessarily picking the most explosive stocks every single week. His true superpower was just starting early and surviving long enough to stay in the game. Time and compounding are literally the ultimate, albeit unglamorous, financial superpowers. So what is time actually allowing to happen? It gives you the chance to catch what we call tail events. These are rare, super hard to predict occurrences that drive the vast majority of long-term financial outcomes. For Warren Buffett, it was buying Coca-Cola in 1989. You do not need to be a genius who's right all the time. Massive wealth usually comes from just a handful of these rare tail events doing all the heavy lifting for you. You could be wrong half the time, and one massive win will make your entire fortune. And the statistics brilliantly illustrate just how extreme this really is. Since 1980, just 7% of companies in the Russell 3000 index drove literally all of the market's net gains. Meanwhile, 93% did not. This statistically proves exactly why you must use that defensive mindset to survive. You just need to stick around long enough, weather the storms, and make sure you're present on the field to catch those rare, explosive upward swings. Section 3. Playing your own game. The ultimate dividend of money is time. Let's transition into some actionable takeaways and talk about avoiding that toxic trap of financial envy. Think about the man in the car paradox. It's pretty simple. No one is as impressed with your stuff as you are. When you see someone driving a $100,000 Ferrari down the street, your first thought isn't, wow, that driver is so smart and successful, I really admire them. No, your first thought is, wow, if I had that car, people would think I'm cool. People buy luxury items to look rich, which ironically just makes them poorer. And all the while, the onlookers aren't even admiring the driver, they're just picturing themselves with the stuff. So we need to completely redefine what wealth actually means. True wealth is invisible. It's the cars you didn't buy, the expensive watches you didn't wear, the unspent money sitting quietly in an investment account. Why? Because that unspent money buys the ultimate dividend, and that is freedom. The highest form of wealth isn't some flashy lifestyle. It's the quiet ability to wake up every morning and say, I can do whatever I want today, with whoever I want for as long as I want. Having control over your time is the single most dependable predictor of happiness. But securing that freedom means you have to stop copying everyone else. If you copy someone else's financial moves, you're inheriting the risks of a game you aren't even playing. Imagine a long-term retirement investor blindly mimicking the trades of a crypto day trader they just saw on social media. I mean, it's a total risk. Welcome back.